My name is Chloe, and this is the Feed Your Flow podcast. Each episode, we will have an authentic conversation to help you start your journey from the eating disorder prison you are in to a life that's free of dogmatic diet rules, excessive exercise, and restriction. This show will help you discover what health really means and how to get there without obsession. As an eating disorder recovery coach and someone who suffered through multiple eating disorders, I am here to show you that recovery is possible and 100% worth it. I know it's scary and there's a lot of work to do, but you too can be free. While this episode isn't necessarily about the steps on how to get your period back, how to stop excessively exercising, and how to properly fuel and nourish your body to get your period back and to become nutritionally rehabilitated, this episode is really important because we discuss what comes next, what comes after recovery. I have many clients who come to me and they are so fearful that they are never, ever, ever going to be able to step foot into a gym again. They think that they can never, ever, ever be mindful and pay attention to the type of food that they're eating or ever order a salad or something like that without it being very disordered. And that's not true. Recovery is not about going from one extreme, the under-eating, over-exercising, to the other extreme, the overeating and never exercising. That's not what it's about. That's not what health is about. Health lies in the middle, guys. It's all about balance. And my mother used to always tell me this. She used to always say, Chloe, stop being so extreme with everything you do and just be balanced. Eat a little bit of vegetables, not too much. Work out a little bit, not too much. But I never really understood until after I went through my recovery process what balance truly meant. I'm interviewing Kirsten today, who used to really help people who are struggling with the amenorrhea, how to get their period back and all of that. But as of late, she's really transitioned into the post-recovery period. What do you do now? Can you go back to exercise? Can you start eating mindfully again without it being disordered? So she is really painting the picture of what true health and balance means and how to get back to that place. And this is super important because many of us won't go through recovery because we are really scared about what the recovery life is going to be like, right? And I think that having these type of conversations and understanding what recovery looks like will lessen the anxiety about getting there. Because we'll see like, oh my gosh, recovery is not this terrible, awful place where we won't be healthy. And I tell my clients this over and over and over again. My main goal for them is for them to have optimal, amazing, vibrant health. That's my goal. I don't want to get them to an unhealthy place. I'm trying to get them out of an unhealthy place, so that they can be in a strong, healthy, well-nourished body. So, we got to get out of the black and white thinking here, guys, that either I'm sick in my eating disorder and I'm severely restricting, or I'm going to be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I'm going to become the binge eater. I'm going to become lazy. I'm never going to want to move my body. Stop thinking that way. That is the eating disorder mind that loves black and white thinking. Eating disorder is very perfectionistic. That's what perfectionism is. It's seeing things as either black or white. Either I do it 100% or I don't. And it's completely disregarding the gray area. So this was a longer intro for today, but I really wanted to just start off with that little bit of conversation to help you just really understand why I think that this conversation that I had with Kirsten is so important to have. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the interview with Kirsten. Kirsten, the slogan on your site is achieve your healthiest, fittest body without obsessions. And this is why I really resonate and love your content, because a lot of the stuff I see online advocates for going to the other extreme. You were once raw vegan and now you have to be eating like McDonald's and Frosted Flake cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But your content is really putting out there this whole middle ground thing where one can increase their fitness, focus on good nutrition, and not be obsessed with it. And Kirsten, this balanced approach is a breath of fresh air in the recovery world. So I'm super excited to have you on here today to talk about finding balance post recovery.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the great work that you are doing as well. Your audience is super, super lucky to have you, and yeah, I'm really glad to talk to you today about all things balance.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, when I found you on Instagram, before I had even started a podcast, it was sort of in my thought realm that I wanted to do this. But I saw you and I was like, I want to interview that girl because we really align on so many things. Um, Flow with Chloe is all about finding that balance. Not unperfect balance, which is why it's a flow. It's never perfectly equal, but it's finding that balance just in life in general. And I think that your content just like screams that out there. And that's super helpful to hear because I think recovery is really hard. And when we don't know that there's like a good happy ending, then it can be even harder to want to do recovery where it's like so many of my clients come to me and they're like, I'm never going to be able to exercise again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's not true. Like you will be able to exercise again. And I know that this is a lot of the work that you do with your clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a big fear that many of them have. In fact, I actually just started a couple of weeks ago my new group coaching program, which is called Rebuild, and it is meant for women who have recovered. And it is exactly meant for for that reason, because they are really, really scared to exercise. Like all of them, they're like, I really think that I'm going to lose my period again, my obsessive eating behaviors will come back, because when I start exercising, I also may start thinking that now I have to cut calories too, because it's kind of like a domino thing. So they are really, really afraid, and they're not the only ones. There are so many other women too. And in recovery, we're talking about like burnout, hypothalamic amenorrhea, all that. In recovery, yes, we have to cut back a lot, but that doesn't mean that now when we start doing a little bit of body weight strength training, or go on a couple of longer walks, that our period's going to go away and then we're going to get obsessive again. It's absolutely not the truth. And when we think about it, exercise is healthy as long as it's done in a healthy way. So it's our choice how we do it.
So you say exercise is healthy as long as it's done in a healthy way. Can you explain to us what an unhealthy way of exercising is?
Mm. Your audience is probably pretty familiar with that, but the funny thing is that we don't see that we're doing it until later. When we look back and we're like, oh, what was I doing? And so unhealthy exercise is exercise that you actually don't want to do, but you force yourself to do it, or you do unreasonably much of it so that you never recovered. You're constantly exhausted. It starts messing with your metabolism. It starts messing with your sleep, with your monthly period, with your mindset. Everything is calculated. Some examples would be just like looking at your wrist watch all the time and seeing, okay, was it 500 calories yet, or do I have to go more? So it's like a whole host of like physical and also mental things that you kind of realize, okay, this is too much to handle for me. And like I said, when we are in the middle of it, it's really hard to see that we're doing it, and then later we get this perspective. So for example, I had experience where when I was working through my recovery, I was working with a naturopath, and she asked me, so how much are you exercising? And back then I was still exercising, and I told her that not that much. I get up in the morning and I do like 30-minute run, and then I do like 30 minutes hit, and then sometimes I go for a walk, and then I go to the gym where I work,
And
and
then I'm
then I
cleaning my house obsessively. And
yes,
yeah.
and then I'm training my clients. I'm on my feet, and then I ride my bike back from the gym home. And she's like, "Do you realize that if you did just one of these things I just mentioned, you would be doing more than the majority of people?" I was like, "No, I did not realize that, because this is what I've always done." And so now, of course, looking back, I see that this was definitely excessive. I mean, even if you're on your rest days, you go and do like a ten mile hilly hike, this is not really a rest day.
I used to hate it when people would tell me like just do yoga on your rest day. And even yoga, I would be like, no, that's not like strong enough. I can't just do yoga. I also have to like go on a 5 mile run and do yoga. Yeah, like you said, on your rest day when it's like
Mhm.
that's not that's not a rest day at all. That's a very active day still.
Yeah, that's a pretty active day. Yeah, I mean, I know. Of course, there are ways to do yoga. Like if you do yin, I believe that this is truly like this can be part of your rest day because
Yeah,
you're
but I
literally
was not doing in yoga. I was
right.
doing like hot in a heated room, like sculpted yoga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seems to be like a piece of hope for those who are now like here. Okay, I can do yoga and walking. Okay, cool. I can do core power 6 days a week. I'm like, no, this you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
So you started excessively exercising. What were some of the things that started going wrong here?
Mhm. So, I mean, I have been active pretty much all my life, but then when I started college, then I kind of started doing a little bit less because long days at school and got my first car and all that, just like becoming more inactive. And then when I was 21, then I really kind of started doing more. I wanted to lose weight, and then I started running a lot. And so I just ran and ran and ran a lot, and then I started noticing things happening at the same time. I also started cutting my calories. So probably the first things that I realized was my sleep, and that completely went really bad. And I remember, when I was younger, it was hard for me to get up in the morning. I was like the biggest sleeper in the world, and my mom would just like try to kick me out of bed to get me to school, and it was hard. And weekends I was like sleep until 10, 11 a.m. No, now the sleep was like total mess. That was one of the things, and just like I wouldn't say I was really exhausted at first, because at first when you lose weight and all that, you start running more, you actually even get better at it. But then after a little while, then it starts to kind of creep up and then catch up on you. And then I started, of course, my period went away, no libido at all, just very constipated. That was one of the things, because I was literally not putting enough food into my body. How would it even try to eliminate anything? So that was one of the big ones. But it's definitely started with sleep, period, and then constipation.
And I think what's really hard to notice those things or to place, to say the culprit is like exercise or your disordered eating is because it's seen as such a healthy thing
Hmm.
in the social media realm and in all these magazines and all of that. It's like all about exercise, 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 eat clean, and all of that. And so we do these things thinking that we're going to be healthy. And
Hmm.
I like my clients to know that's like, I'm not judging you for wanting to eat super clean and exercise 3 times a day. I think that this is just a message that you have sort of downloaded and you think that you are doing something right and correct.
Hmm.
But it's really hard. And I don't know if you get this with your clients, it's sometimes really hard for some people to understand that it is these healthy things that they are doing. And that was healthy in quotes here, the
Hmm.
healthy things that they're doing that are actually leading to this, you know, state of ill health, the bad sleep, and sleep is super, super important. That's why teenagers and kids do sleep a lot because there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of things happening in the sleep that's really necessary. And when we
Hmm.
skip out on that, we're just going to be sort of burning through our cortisol really quickly. And a lot of things are going to start happening with cortisol super high.
Exactly. Yeah. This is very, very true. Getting into hormones here, but yeah, cortisol, it's like the key to so many things.
Yeah. So, what would you say is like the number one thing that you see people doing wrong in terms of trying to achieve health?
Hmm. Overdoing it, overcomplicating things, doing too much. I mean, had somebody told me 10 years ago what is possible doing less, I would have been like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Because to me, I even remember like people said they go to the gym, like, why do you go to the gym if you can burn more calories running? like just run an hour every single day. That's fine. Like this is all my thought pattern was like, okay, how can I burn more? And this is what I see. How can I burn more? And through that, I can earn a little bit more calories. And then I still like eat less. So it's just taking things to the extreme, thinking that you have to run every single day, thinking that you have to eat very low number of calories. Like everything is taken like totally to like very extreme points where you could actually get away with eating a decent amount of calories and then lifting weights a couple of times a week and going on walks and chilling a lot more. Also, like not giving ourselves the proper rest. A lot of my clients struggle with sitting down and being. They're like, if I'm not doing anything, then I'm like being lazy, and then being lazy is bad. And my mom always told me that don't be lazy. And we have those old thoughts in our heads and those old messages. So we feel extremely guilty for resting. But I would say, if you want to be fit and strong and healthy, you gotta do just enough. When we talk about exercise, just enough, but not too much.
I
Right?
think that that was one of the craziest things that I learned in my journey. I came from 11 years of extreme exercise addiction and orthorexia and anorexia, so sort of all of
Mhm.
them combined. Um, and I always thought that to like have the body that I wanted, I had to exercise like 6 hours a day. I had to eat like under 1,000 calories. And I had to do just all this really sort of punishing stuff to keep my body in this like quote unquote healthy state or this really lean state. And what's really funny to me now, being past that whole recovery thing, is like how much I can eat,
Mhm.
how little I can exercise
Yeah.
and still be really strong and fit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dang, like I didn't need to do all that obsessive stuff that was, in the end of the day, just ruining my health even more. And there's a way for me to work with my hormones and work with my body and to rest my body and to eat well and have like the health and fitness that I really want. And maybe this is a good segue into starting to talk about that because being athletic, loving to exercise is not what's wrong. And you really preach that too. And I see that on your Instagram page and on your YouTube and your podcast. It's like, it's not wrong to want to exercise and it does make us feel good. Um, but it's just wrong when we're overdoing it, like you said.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of our the people listening here, they understand that in order to heal the hormones, we're going to have to take this time off of exercise. We're going to have to eat a lot of food. We're going to have to let go of these restrictions. But can we sort of talk about the what next? Like, what happens now? I've totally let go. I've allowed my body to gain weight that it needed to gain. I've been taken off of exercise. Can I ever get back to it in a healthy, non obsessive way?
Mm. Yes, if your mindset is right, and that's on you, you have to get it right, then absolutely, of course you can. And we have so many people who have been able to do it. Like, can we even imagine, like, how, I mean, it clearly does not make sense that we're not supposed to exercise. Like, human beings are meant to move. And I think when we look at the majority of people of our population, they are not moving enough, right? So, and now you and I, we're talking to people who used to do a lot of it, but there is a balance. And definitely after you have recovered, first of all, your body has to be totally healed, right? You have to have your metabolism back on track, feeling healthy, all that. And then what I generally recommend is start with some body weight training, or pick up some light weights. Like, don't push yourself immediately to where you were before. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see, that people think that, okay, I can go back to the gym now, it's been 6 months, but let's go and let's do it. And so they either pick up the same barbell that they did before without realizing that, okay, this is too much right now, or pushing themselves to do like a crazy high intensity workout. And of course, you have gained weight, you haven't trained your stamina. Of course, it's going to be freaking hard. So don't do it. And on top of that, it's going to make you feel horrible because now you're like, oh my God, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I can't do anything. Then the negative self talk starts, right? So to avoid all that and really do it in a reasonable way, start with some body weight training. Do like two or three workouts a week. Go back to basics, do some squats, see where your push-ups are at. Those can be really hard after recovery because we haven't done them in a while. Do some lunges, just stick with the basics and don't go crazy immediately. because I've seen plenty of examples of people starting to do like high intensity, like the first day their period comes, they're like, okay, we go. And so they just mess their bodies up again really quickly, and they're surprised why did it happen. And I always tell them that, you know what, if this messed up the first time, messed you up the first time around, why do you think it's going to be different this time, right?
Yeah, and that's something that's also like important to mention, that it's like you can get back to eating healthy. You can get back to, well, and we have to redefine what healthy is, because
Yeah.
obviously how you're doing it before wasn't healthy. But I would say you can go back to being mindful, getting good ingredients, cooking more at home, like doing all that type of stuff. And
Mhm.
you can start exercising again, but it's not going to be the same way you did it before.
Mhm.
And I do see that a lot with some clients. They think that's like, okay, so when can I just like start eating big salads for lunch again? I'm like, wait, did you not learn anything through this? Like your main thing was that you weren't eating enough during the day, and you
Mhm.
just wanting to go back to your plain salad with no dressing and like nothing on top.
Mhm.
That's not gonna be smart here, because you're just gonna end up with amenorrhea again. You're gonna
Mhm.
end up in that overtraining spot again.
Mhm.
And so your exercise post recovery and your eating habits, hopefully you've learned some things and it's going to be different.
Mhm.
And you mentioned going back into body weight training,
Mhm.
or more like weight training and stuff like that. I have, I think I know why you didn't say cardio, but do you want to tell our listeners why maybe starting to like run 10 miles a day might not be the best thing to jump into?
Mhm. Yeah, I would definitely avoid cardio, at least in the beginning of when you start exercising. Cardio, walking is cardio too, and that's fine. But when we talk about running and 10 miles and so on, it's just super stressful for the body. And we briefly mentioned cortisol. That's the big one there, because when we do steady state cardio, we elevate. I mean, every time we exercise, we elevate our cortisol levels. But if we do steady state cardio, then the cortisol levels stay up the whole time, right? So it's like chronic state of stress, even though you may be thinking this is a stress relief for me, but your body sees it as stress and it doesn't want it. And then if we keep that cortisol elevated all the time, remember it's not only when we're working out, it's also our everyday stress where it's constantly elevated, right? Then it's not going to be a great combination, and your hormones will likely suffer from that. So that's why I'm more proponent of strength training, where you can do your set and then you put your weights down and rest, and literally rest, not do like burpees or kettlebell swings between your sets. That can come later if your body is like, getting super solid and strong. Cool, yeah. But then in the beginning, do your squats, rest. I don't know, scroll on Instagram, stretch, whatever you want to do. Then do your squats, rest, right? This is how you have to start, and not push this cardio so hard. I know that for like mental health benefits, it is very, very helpful for some people. But I would also like you to ask yourself, okay, is it really for my mental health? Or is it actually my obsessiveness speaking like in the back of my head and saying that you have to do this because this is what you did before. This is the thing that burns calories. This is how you're going to cook it. This is where we don't want to go.
And I think that definitely, that mentality definitely comes into play with a lot of us who are still going through recovery. And even once you sort of get to that recovered state, that can still be something that it's a personality thing. We tend to be very type A, very driven, perfectionistic, hardworking women who tend to lead ourselves into this whole overtraining thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of those like mentalities can still come. Something I like to tell my clients is that, because I understand, I trust me, I love the gym. I love exercising. I really, really do. And for me, yeah, it is such a mental boost. And I understand like the mental freedom and clarity that comes from like moving my body. But something that the whole recovery process really helped me see, and I'm wondering if this was for you too, Kirsten, is that I don't, while I love exercise and while it's such a benefit and plus to my life, recovery really taught me that I don't need it to be happy.
Mhm.
And going through this recovery really helped me shift things mentally to be like, okay, sure, going on a run can help me feel good mentally, but I have now developed all these other tools and things that can help me feel good, so that I'm not relying on just exercise to make me feel really good. So
Mhm.
that if anything happened, if I run into amenorrhea again, if I, break a leg or do something like that, I'm not now going to like be put in this super like depressive anxiety state, because I've now developed the tools for recovery. Um, to really learn how to be just happy and present in the here and now without having to do these excessive sort of workouts.
Hmm. Yeah, this is very interesting. So I would say that for me, exercise is really important, and definitely. I mean, if I had a situation where I had to just drop it and I cannot do it for some reason, I would survive. It would be fine, but it would, it does, it would affect the level of my well-being. Absolutely, it would, because for me, just like the feeling of like feeling empowered and feeling strong, this is what I get from lifting weights.
Mm.
And then also getting outside, getting some sunshine on my walks. I literally I do feel worse if I don't get like sunshine during the day.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely does like have a strong impact. But again, if I had to, then yes, for whatever reason. The other thing is like, for example, foods, right? I always say that, you know what, like I would never ever anymore give up things like my favorite things that I used to say no to when I was dieting. It was like chocolate and cheese and nuts and wine, can't have them. Right. But now I would say, okay, I'm never going to stop eating them. I love them forever. But if I had like a health condition or something that requires me to give up cheese, I guess I could do it and still, do something else, eat something else, you know. So you find yeah, you're right. We shouldn't be like dependent on one thing that strongly, right?
Yeah. And being able to even just because I'm right there with you. It's like it does bring me a lot of happiness. I do love it. But if I feel tired that day,
Hmm.
I'm not pushing myself to go exercise because it's the one
Yeah,
thing that's going to make me feel good. And I think you've definitely learned that too because you take rest,
yeah.
you listen to your body, and when you don't have, I don't know, when you haven't gone through that sort of mentality shift of like I don't need to be overtraining every day,
Hmm.
you can really just start pushing yourself into doing things that your body's just really not asking for
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
of the guilt and anxiety that you feel of not doing it.
yeah. That's absolutely true. I mean, of course, rest days are so important, and if I don't even think that it's true that we have to exercise like every single day to be happy. This is just a story, and I think the what's actually kind of in the background is the feeling of guilt if we don't do it. Because if we actually look inside of us and see, okay, am I like less happy because I took a rest day? No, it's just that the nagging voice in the back of your head again that tells you that you're somehow, I don't know, worse person or something like that. Right. So rest days are super important for me and I look forward to them as much as I look forward to my workout days. Today is a rest day. I really enjoy it. Whereas in the past it was like, oh my God, I have to do something, I have to do something, I have to do something. It's kind of like wrong, right? Now
But
rest
you,
days, planned rest days, sometimes spontaneous rest days. If I didn't get a good sleep, that's going to be the next day is going to be a rest day. You have to be able to just kind of adjust as the based on whatever happens in your life.
and what's crazy is that your health gets better when you do so.
Absolutely, yeah. Rest is so undervalued, and listening to your body is so undervalued. It's kind of like what you mentioned earlier. Everybody's pushing that exercise. When you look around on social media, do more, do more, do more. This is just this is so misleading. It's also our job actually to be responsible and understand that we don't have to exercise every single day. I don't think it's like healthy to do like super hard CrossFit plus running workouts like twice a day. It's not good for anybody unless you're like athlete, like elite athlete. But those people do it for life. That's their life, that's their income. But you're not that person.
Yeah. My grandma, who is 87 years old,
Hmm.
she is French. She's like the cutest little thing. She is in such good health. Like the only thing that she has wrong is that she's like a little deaf in her left ear. Like that is it. But she travels all around the world with us. She goes to Costa Rica, she goes to Italy, she's always in like Vietnam. She's traveling everywhere. She's super, super active for her age.
Hmm.
And she has never once, not once, stepped foot in a gym.
Hmm.
Never. I don't think she's ever picked up a weight. And now I'm not saying weight training is bad and we shouldn't be doing anything. Trust me, I love it. But she's just walked. She's
Hmm.
walked her whole life. She's been outside. She's found ways to de-stress. She doesn't really get caught up in her head a lot. She's very sort of at ease, and she's always sort of been like that. But she's she's never been the person to go run up a mountain with, 15 kilos on their back. Like, she just simply moves her body gently, and that has been enough to keep her healthy.
Yeah.
I think we
No,
have this idea that we have to do the HIIT workouts, but I'm like, you don't they're great, you can do them if you want to. You don't have to do them to be healthy.
no, absolutely not. Yeah. And I think the big piece of like why your grandma is that way is that mindset. Because if we can create like such a terrible place in our heads that is like all about pushing and forcing and I have to and why do other people think and all these things that are just like circling around in our heads, this is really really bad, and this is as unhealthy as over exercising, I would say.
So I want to switch it now a little bit to the food side of things because this
Mhm.
is a huge component of all of this. You go through recovery and you start really eating a good amount of food to get your period back and all of that. What happens after?
Mm. You mean after your period has come back?
Your period has come back, you've gone through the recovery. How do you eat?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big question, and a lot of people are super confused. And it's hard because now there's no rules all of a sudden, right? Like before, when you were doing whatever diet, let's say that I know you were vegan, right? So you had like list of things. Okay, these are yes, and the rest is no. And then in recovery, the message was like eat whatever you want all the time, and okay, you did that. And now it's like okay, what's now?
Well, I remember you posted, sort of jumping the gun a little bit here, but you had posted something, or maybe it was a story, but it was something along the lines of like, you don't have to eat the cake. And
Uh-huh.
I really resonated with this because all of recovery, I really forced myself to eat dessert every single night. And anytime food was offered to me, I would say yes, just to really like, I mean, I was fighting a severe eating disorder here, and I really needed to eat all my favorite foods, eat in abundance, have the Oreos, have the donuts. Like, I had to do that to really neurally rewire
Mhm.
um, my brain here. But then recovery came, and I
Mhm.
found myself for a little bit still, like, always saying yes to the desserts, even though I didn't even really want it, and I was like, "I don't even really feel like cake right now," but I'm making myself eat it because I feel like if I don't, then I'm going back into, like, my disordered state. But you really have been talking about, like, that doesn't have to be disordered.
Mhm. Yeah, so exactly. So, for example, now when you are recovered, I always recommend that you start asking yourself questions more, like get more like I don't want to say intuitive, but ask yourself, do I actually want this? So, okay, it's after dinner and there's like a slice of cake, and you would automatically go and eat it. But then take a second and ask yourself, do I want it? Or do I just want it because it's in front of me and I didn't think about it even before? And so then make a choice. Also, know that nothing bad is going to happen if you're going to skip that slice of cake. Like, literally, like, if you think about like a healthy person who has a normal relationship with food, do they always eat cake when it's placed in front of them? No. And you see a lot of people who have a couple of bites and then they leave it, right? So we have to kind of develop this another new thing, which is like this in between state where you eat it if you want it, but then also you don't always eat it because you don't have to, right? And then this fear can get really into people's heads. And then I've had girls who tell me that I now all I'm eating is like processed stuff and like cakes, and like sometimes I've had a day when I just had naturally a little bit less hunger, so I go to the kitchen at night and I just eat the highest calorie food that I can find just because I feel like I have to put calories into my body. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Because you are recovered, you are healthy, you're physiologically, your body is healthy. You don't have to push calories down if you don't feel like you want to eat them. And then they say, yeah, like I still did it and now I feel like because it gives me like a lot of processed foods give people stomach issues. This is not to demonize processed foods. I think they're fine once in a while. But then they say that it really gives me like stomach discomfort. And then I still do it the same thing the next night. I'm like, you have to start asking yourself why I'm doing this. And it's normal that naturally some days you have less hunger and other days you have more hunger. So on those days when you have less hunger, you don't have to force down the foods that you don't want to eat. Another example is from another client who has kind of like similar story. What you said about the cakes. She said So my mom was over last night. She bought those cupcakes, and I didn't like them. I took a bite. I was like, I don't like it, but I thought I would still have to eat two. And I asked her, why do you think you have to eat two? Because you don't. Your body clearly told you that you don't want it. You didn't even love the taste of it. And she said, well, this is going to be maybe disordered behavior if I don't eat it. And this is not the case at all.
See, I think there's a lot of PTSD about like going back into like a restrictive thing. And that's why I brought this up because I remember feeling this, being like, oh no, like now I have to make sure that I'm always eating like cubes and cubes of butter at every meal. I love butter. I eat lots of butter. And I'm not, it's not from a disordered place anymore, but I got to that place where my body's fine. Like my
Hmm.
body feels really good and I will feed my body, big picture. I feed my body really well every
Hmm.
single day, every single week. Like, yeah, there's moments, like you said, there's moments when you're not as hungry, but I don't fear that anymore because I know that there's moments where I'll be really hungry and it's not a restrictive thing anymore. Now it's that flow. It's just that like I have let go of all weird food things and I'm just allowing my body to just do what it wants to do and to listen
Hmm.
to it.
Hmm.
And I think that this is a really important conversation to have with people who are just starting recovery because they really fear that they're going to become binge eaters. They really fear that they're never going to want to get back to the gym. They really fear that they're just going to forever have to put all this sort of health sort of stuff aside. And they're always going to have to be eating processed food and a bunch of junk and all of that. And I think my message and your message is really you can find a healthy balance with being able to eat healthy foods. I work at an organic farm stand for the last 5 years. I get all organic grass-fed meats and get wild caught fish from our harbor here. Like I have my 12 chickens right out here. Like I get fresh eggs. I eat really good.
Hmm.
And last night I went out and I had got churros with my friends and we loved them and they were so good. And the other day, um, my mom made a little like pumpkin cake. And so we had some pumpkin cake. I mean, I don't fear these foods anymore,
Hmm.
but I
Yeah.
also don't have to eat them every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that once we recovered and kind of broken those old fears around foods, that I can't have this and can't have that. So once we recover, our metabolism is perfectly fine. Then I do think it's very valuable to eat mostly whole foods and good quality foods. So I am not that person who tells you this, let's continue this food party and eat crap all day long. I do not think is a good idea for many reasons, but your hormones is one of the reasons. Because I mean, all we hear about like the health, like how the food impacts our health, this is not like BS. This is a real thing. We have to keep our blood sugar stable. We have to get not only the macronutrients but also micronutrients. So you're not gonna get those micronutrients from like processed foods. We know how they work our brain, what happens in our brain if we over consume them. So I would say focus on whole real foods as much as you can, and then add in, just like sprinkle in the fun stuff that you like, that pumpkin cake or those churros. Don't restrict yourself the way you did when pre-recovery, but also don't go overboard with this stuff because there are many reasons. Like I said, hormones. I realized like at the end of last year that I have a little bit of insulin resistance, and that was maybe because I continued just randomly eating all that stuff all the time, which was like high sugar, and I would just randomly. I always talk about this example that I was driving back home from work, and like I would just like automatically go to a store, buy like those chocolate covered almonds, and just on my way home I would just eat like a whole bag. And it was like a new habit. And then I was like, okay, why am I doing this actually? Do I even want them? And when I started asking myself that, I was like, actually I don't. I can wait. I can let them sit here for a little while and eat them over the course of like 3 4 days. So you got to notice yourself in those patterns too. And like I said before, if you like eat tons of, like if you continue eating over a long period of time, like a lot of sugar and just like unreasonable amounts, then it's not going to be great for the health as well, unfortunately.
Just love that you're saying this. And this is why I said in the beginning, like, your approach is a breath of fresh air online, because I would say that like 98% of the like recovery things that I see online are all about sort of going to that other extreme, which I know during recovery, you have those moments where, okay, you really, you've restricted yourself from chocolate for 7 years, and now you incorporate chocolate back into your life, and chocolate sort of becomes a thing. But I definitely preach that same thing of like, we got to get these nutrient dense foods in you. I want to see the sardines. I want to see the pastured egg yolks. I want to see the bone marrow and the lamb stews and things like that. Like, I want you to be eating really dense, nutritious, awesome, amazing food to help balance out your hormones, because it's like we're doing two things. One, we got to fix the energy debt, because energy debt's going to screw up with your body and your hormones so much that's like, okay, we got to get out of that energy debt. And yes, calories and calories in processed food can really help with that.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I see it as a very inefficient way to just go, I'm only going to eat junk food throughout my recovery
Mhm.
and just try and eat, which is probably going to lead to a lot of like overconsumption,
Mhm.
probably going to lead to a lot of excessive weight gain too that you might not have needed to do.
Mhm.
Um, just to try and get your period back. And you'll get your period back because you calorically have really replenished yourself. But then I see a lot of PCOS things happening. I see a lot of other
Exactly.
imbalances. And I'm like, okay, so the better approach is let's stop fearing the meats. Let's stop fearing the, dairy. Let's stop fearing the eggs and the whatever. Let's eat the nutrient dense foods. Let's sprinkle in the fun foods and realize that it doesn't matter if we eat a chocolate croissant. You're going to live and survive. It's the overall zoom out big picture of things. But let's really focus on getting those foods that have the zinc and the vitamin A and the cholesterol and everything that you need for your hormones.
Exactly. Oh my God, this is so, so true. And I like that you also touched on something that a lot of people don't want to talk about or think that is a bad thing to talk about, which is excessive weight gain, right? Okay, cool. Absolutely. 100% you and I know that we need to gain weight, period. To get your period, you have to gain weight. There's no question about it. I get some emails sometimes. All right, please tell me how I can get my period back without gaining weight. I'm like, no, you can't. So
Yeah.
that's the story. But what happens afterwards? Is it really true that we have to continue eating bunch like loads and loads of junk food and then literally get up to a point where we are physically very uncomfortable? And there is this book actually out there, I don't remember the name, but it basically encourages people to continue to eat like 5,000 plus calories a day, and that's a real thing. So when you read the comments on Amazon, you see that people have ended up with terrible health issues, just absolutely terrible health issues. And even if it's not 5,000 calories, even if it's just over your daily need consistently, then you're going to gain that weight. And so we're not saying that to discriminate anyone or saying that it's wrong to be in a certain size of body, but if it's going to make you feel unhealthy, if you're gonna feel like out of breath after going up flight of stairs, if it's going to feel very make you feel very uncomfortable in your clothes, if you're like sweating all the time, you're out of breath, your heart is pounding, you're developing estrogen dominance, all these things, this is not a healthy place to be. And that's why I get a little fired up here when I see these recommendations. It's okay to eat forever and ever, like all the crap in the world, but no, it's not. And so I really like all the delicious foods that you mentioned, delicious, nutritious, healthy foods. And when you eat them, you actually want a little bit less of those not so good quality foods. And this is how you get your health really back on track.
Yes, yes. And you talk about, and this is also a thing that's very like frowned upon in the like eating sort of recovery realm, is you talk about weight loss,
Hmm. I do.
because that's not bad. Wanting to
Hmm.
be in a healthy body where you feel healthy, like you're saying, where you can move, where you're not, panting when you're going up the stairs, like that's not bad. It's the starving yourself and overtraining to get there that's bad.
Hmm.
But there's a way to get, to a place where your body's just at this really healthy weight for you, where you're eating the nutritious foods, you're not overly restricting, you're not mentally preoccupied about food, you're not overworking yourself. And, you know, yeah, the weight loss doesn't have to be bad when it's done from the right way.
No, no, absolutely not. And I think if it makes you feel good, it's not that it's going to bring you the happiness that you never had. No, no, it's never going to happen. But if you are physically healthy, mentally healthy, and you want to feel better in your body, you want to feel a bit lighter, you want to have more energy. I have a girl who's a trail runner, never had any HA or anything like that, but she's like, I want to lose a bit of weight so I can run better. Why are these bad reasons? Why is like a little bit of vanity a bad reason? I don't think it's a bad reason. So if somebody wants to change your body composition, there are different ways of doing it. You can go crazy and you can just do it in a unhealthy way, like a lot of us used to do in the past, or you can be smart about it and you can just like take small steps, make a couple of tweaks, work it into your life so it's doable, doesn't drive you nuts, doesn't drive your family nuts, and you can still do it in a healthy and sustainable way.
So during my recovery, I did gain sort of that like extra weight. It was never an excessive amount, but I did get to that place where I was feeling, my hormones were back on track and that felt really great, but I was starting to feel really uncomfortable. And I wasn't like hating my body. I wasn't hating my life. I wasn't thinking that I was valued any less for being at this weight or anything. I simply was just this awareness of like, I'm not feeling comfortable and I don't want to put on clothes because I'm just like not comfortable with how my stomach feels. I'm not like it just felt I felt like a little too just puffy for me and I'm a naturally very athletic person. And so after that recovery, after I had a number of periods, then naturally I started just working on this mindfulness on, okay, Chloe, do you really want dessert right now? Or is this, like you said, is it a habit? A lot of it was just habit. I was really used to in my recovery, I would take like bread, I would slather ghee on it, and then I would put cheese, and then I would like put an egg on top. I'm like, okay, maybe I don't need to be so excessive with everything, and maybe I can just eat in a more balanced way now. And so I started doing that, and the weight naturally, without me having to excessively cut calories or do any of that, my weight
Mhm.
naturally started going back to this really beautiful place where I feel strong, I have muscle tone, I'm at a healthy BMI for sure. Like I'm not, underweight by any means. But I feel a lot more comfortable on my body. And I always tell people like you can get back to that. You can get back to that comfortable place and that's totally okay.
Yeah, yeah, we just need a boatload of patience, but it's totally doable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did after my third recovery period, I remember I got a little bit too excited and I was like, I'm really gonna start like running again. I'm gonna start doing all these things. And I had lost like just like 3 pounds in that month, but it was 3 pounds way too soon, way too quickly, and my 4th period didn't come.
Hmm. Oh, when did it come eventually?
I immediately course corrected.
Yeah.
I started, taking out some cardio. I still was weight training. I still was, doing some things. I started, increasing my calories just a little bit because I had it slightly reduced, and boom, my period came back again.
Hmm.
And after I got to like the seventh, eighth period, then I feel like I don't know. I feel like I can be a little bit more. I don't want to say tough on my body, but I can really challenge myself athletically now without really having to worry that my period's gonna go away because
Hmm.
I'm paying attention to all the markers of am I feeling energetic? Do I
Right.
want to work out today? Do I not? And I have to listen to that because I know if I push myself when I really truly don't feel like going to the gym, I didn't sleep well, I didn't get enough food that day, I know that that's just going to land me back in the land of amenorrhea and I don't want to be there.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that you're listening to yourself and honoring that, because this old mindset has to go. You know, these days I never want to go to the gym first thing in the morning. I just don't. I want to sit around for a little bit. I want to meditate. I want to read, and then I go. But it used to be like, okay, boom, go now. So yeah, it's really really important to learn from these lessons in the past, and then like you said, course correct if something goes wrong. So earlier we're talking about, okay, this fear, like if I don't eat this thing, if I don't like overeat all the time, if my period's going to go away. So now when you start using a little bit more mindfulness and eating like according to your needs, then monitor what's happening in your body, because it may happen that you do end up eating a little too little. It's not the end of the world. Then you're just going to correct that, and then you're going to maybe set some goals. Okay, cool, I may have dropped like too low in my calories. How about for next month, I'm going to make sure that I'm getting like 2200, whatever the number is, right? And so you're going to get yourself back on track. It's not that, if you catch it early, then it's fine. You're going to be fine. Like one missed period is not going to be the end of the world, right? It's not that I want it for anybody, but it's your learning opportunity. And like you said, you realize that, okay, it was like you lost about 3 pounds. Maybe that's kind of like where your threshold is. You shouldn't go below that. And this is what you know now, right? And so yeah, you can always, people get really, really terrified, and I get it. Like, nobody wants to go through this whole process again, but you can always just get really introspective and see, what did I do last month? What may have caused it? Okay, I'm gonna increase my food a little bit. I'm gonna take a couple more rest days because maybe I didn't take enough, and then your period will come again. As
Yeah,
long
and
as
I've
you don't let it,
often sorry, I didn't mean to
as
cut you
long
off.
as you don't let it go on for like months and months, this is when we start having problems.
Yeah, and it's often the just small little course corrects, like you said. I really like that you said that because I think they fear like I'm gonna have to go through the all in journey again of like
Mhm.
completely staying off of exercise. And unfortunately, recovery has made some people afraid of the healthy eating and afraid of the exercise.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't even know what it is. If it is the messaging now that, that you have to, because I stopped following a lot of accounts, which because I couldn't agree with the message anymore. And so now I don't see them anymore because they're like out of my sight. I'm like, I also I didn't want to be like put in the same box with those people who like preach that kind of stuff. And that's why I had to leave that space. I was like, I'm doing things a little bit differently here.
That's really funny that you say that because the same thing over here. I think you were one of the only recovery accounts that I follow
Mhm. And
because
I don't.
everyone else I couldn't. I'm like, oh no, I
Mhm.
get that they're trying to help. I don't mean to bash, but I just think that they have gone a little bit to the other side.
Yeah, I believe it too. And I mean, like we talked earlier too, it's good to have this period when you allow yourself the freedom and all that kind of stuff, just to mentally break through a couple of those old things that are still lingering around. But it shouldn't become your new lifestyle, because it's almost like dieting in reverse, right? You used to like restrict everything that was bad, and now like eating everything all the time. That's not gonna go be super good either.
There.
Yeah.
Well, Kirsten, I absolutely, absolutely loved this conversation. I think we align on a lot of things, and I hope that our listeners got a lot out of this that you can be healthy and strong and vibrant and athletic and eat good food after your recovery.
Yeah.
Um, so I do know that you have a training that I believe you just started again, another coaching program that helps women with this like post recovery time. Do you want to dive into that before we leave here?
Yes, of course. Yes, this is exactly meant for women who have had at least three periods already and are ready to learn to eat healthy again, and then start implementing or start incorporating more exercise in their life again. And it is a 12-week, that's 3 months, mentorship for women like that. And the common theme, what I see there is exactly like, I don't know how to eat. If I don't have any rules and numbers, how do I do that? I don't know how to exercise. Am I going to overdo this? How do I even listen to my body? Like, they have all these questions because it's very hard to do that balance thing where there is essentially no rules, but we do have guidelines. So one of the things that I feel like is kind of dangerous when we tell people just eat intuitively, they're like, yeah, cool, but how? So now we're gonna want to give you some guidelines that are your guidelines, right? And the difference between the rules and guidelines is that guidelines are flexible. You do your best to follow them. Maybe we set a goal to have 2 or 3 workouts a week. That's your goal, but the world's not going to end if you're going to do one, or if you're going to, maybe you have super good energy day, you do 3, right? So it's like giving them the guidelines so that they can have a normal life again, which includes healthy eating, which includes healthy exercise. There's a lot of education around hormones in this mentorship too. And yeah, it started 2 weeks ago. I don't know when this is going to air, but there's not going to be another one until the end, sorry, until 2021. And this is when I will do another round of it.
But you do one-on-one coaching as well, correct?
Yes, yes, I do one-on-one coaching as well.
Great. Well, you guys, I will link all of Kirsten's info down below. Follow her on Instagram because every single day you will definitely get inspired and you will definitely learn something new about your body and about how to listen to it, which is so great. So, thank you so much for being on the show, Kirsten. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, and you too.
Thank you
you for tuning in to today's podcast. I hope that you guys got some good stuff out of that. If you are interested in looking up Kirsten and the work that she does, please see the links in the bio to her Instagram page, her website, and her coaching programs. If you guys enjoyed this podcast and this conversation style interview where we get into everything that has to do with recovery, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a comment and a review. I really appreciate you guys also sharing this interview with anyone who you know could learn something from what me and Kirsten talked about today. All right, I will see you guys in the next Feed Your Flow podcast.